morning, everybody. Welcome to Out of Bed. This is the podcast where I talk to my friends about what gets them out of bed and what they're passionate about. And normally I have a co-host with me, but he has kids. He is a busy man, so he is watching movies with his children, which is delightful. But because Matt isn't here, I have lots of co-hosts, and they are great. So I'm going to introduce them to you now. First up is Janty Shoga. Janty Shoga, say hi.
Hi.
Hi, Janty. Next up is Daniel Costa. Daniel Costa, say hi.
Hi.
Hi. So you guys, you probably don't know any of these people as guests of our as friends of our podcast, but they are my improv team. They are in a group with me called Mouth Stuff, and we make pretend for fun, and it's very fun. And I brought them on because our guest is a former teacher. That's how you say that word, right? Teacher?
Teacher's right.
Teacher's correct. Okay. Teacher of ours, and his name is Nathaniel Tyson, and he looks like this. Hi, Nate.
Hi, how's it going?
It is going lovely. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being had. Yeah. Anyway, I'm very excited about this because I've been wanting to talk with you for a while, because you are a very interesting person to me, and you're a very funny person, and I think you are a very introspective person as well at times. From what I can tell.
Well, thank you. First off, it's really kind, and obviously I'm a big fan here too. I was really delighted that you were interested in talking to me, and also delighted to see you other gentlemen here. I had no clue you were going to be here. It's a nice reunion.
Surprise!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also funny because you both sounded exactly the same when you said hi earlier, so it sounded like one person was doing two identities.
That's what I was going for. I want to mimic Janty in all forms of life.
That makes sense.
That's how I am as well, honestly.
I'm uncomfortable.
So normally how this podcast starts is after I ramble with Matt for a little bit and introduce myself to the guest and introduce the guest to all of us, then I ask the guest what gets them out of bed. So Nate Tyson, what gets you out of bed?
Ooh, these days it's the Criterion Channel. I've been watching a lot of movies, but normally what gets me out of bed is, well, definitely improv, as we've introduced, and I think being in my 30s right now is what's getting me out of bed.
Okay.
Because my 20s were a bit of a not a disaster, but they were a long decade. So getting out of bed now is waking up not hungover and feeling like shit, and being like, that's good enough. I'll get up because of that.
Wow, that is impressive. I really do it. When you said that your 20s felt very long, I felt that like real hard.
Yeah.
As somebody who's still in them, it's dragging. Like it's dragging on a little bit.
Yeah, that back half's not as fun.
Oh no, that front half. Oh boy, that front half is a ride. But that back half that's. Whew. So you mentioned that you're not waking up hungover anymore.
That's
Were
true.
you waking up hungover all the time?
So yeah, I used to drink a lot. I don't know when it started up, but it was one of those things that the more you hang around people who drink to pass the time, the more you don't realize that you are always drinking. So I just spent most of my 20s, every night drinking a lot of Jameson, about half a bottle a night, and that was very normal. And being in comedy and everything like that, you'd go out for drinks afterwards. So even like when you were being productive and social and not like, some sort of like hermit drinking alone in my room or anything like that, it was still a big part of my life.
Do you feel that you're any less social now that you don't drink?
Yeah, a lot less social. To an extent. I mean, I think also drinking coincided with when I became more social, like when parties started up, when going out and being around people in massive groups seemed appealing only when I was drunk, for the most part. Or, I mean, I guess there are a few parties I liked, but as far as like hanging around strangers and everything like that, I'm a very nervous person, very anxious that people aren't going to like me, sort of deep down. So I think drinking helped me ignore that or get over it. And now that I'm not anymore, and I'm sort of trying to find ways to spend time not doing that, I ended up alone at home a lot watching movies. Big endorsement for not drinking. Don't worry, you get to hang out all alone. You don't see anybody anymore.
Well, you're like an expert movie buff, though.
I really like movies.
Did you like movies as much before you stopped drinking, or was like your love of movies kind of like you were like, I don't want to hang out with people. I want to learn about this world of film?
Well, yeah. I mean, that does sum it up. I started, I mean, I've always liked movies ever since I was a kid. It was like going to the movie was like the biggest treat possible for me. And then I think what it was is that I started really diving into watching older movies when I was younger. And then when I hit my 20s or so, I kind of tailed off because I was just doing other things, like hanging out with people. I didn't have, 2 hours to sit down, or at least I didn't make that time. And I really wasn't until I needed to spend nights at home that I started being like, well, I'll just check out what's on streaming. And, as soon as I started doing that, I was like, oh, right. There's like, 70, 80 years of really great films that I haven't checked out, really closer to like 100. And I just started deciding to use the time I had in front of the computer or TV to like try to like pursue something edifying to an extent, which was a lot of Criterion movies, a lot of originally it was Vine compilations, and then I spent 4 hours watching Vines, and I was like, I need to watch good movies, because I could have watched like a bunch of Ingmar Bergman during this time. Instead, I saw somebody almost drop their croissant 5 times.
That is a good one.
It is
love that one.
It's a classic in every compilation because everybody likes it.
Can I jump in, Topher?
Please, Daniel and Janty, please jump in whenever.
Cool. So Nate, you said when like you were growing up, going to the movies was like a big event. Same. Like I have really like vivid memories of like going to the theater after school with my mom, and like she'd bring my cousins and we'd like go see like Pokemon or something.
Nice.
And we would like movie hop and like go see like two for the price of one kind of thing. But I have like really vivid memories of like bad theater audience members. So like one, I think when we saw Spider-Man 1 or 2, there was this woman like a couple seats next to us who was just like eating popcorn, smacking her lips, like so loud that I remember it. And like that's all we could talk about after the movie. Do you have any like experiences like that?
Yeah, I do. I remain an easily irritable person in the theaters, so I tend to shush people or just ask them to stop talking, or I don't suffer in silence with those anymore. The first time I ever did it though was at the movie The Hours with Nicole Kidman and Julianne Moore, and it was it must have been 2002, like early December or something like that, and I was at the Arundel Mills movie theater here in Maryland, and there were 2 women who laughed every time something remotely like sapphic or queer happened in the movie, and the movie has a lot like that is an underlying theme and like presence in all of the storylines going on. So it was these 2 like grown-ass women who were giggling through the whole movie, and like loudly, because it's not, you know, unlike, I mean, it's crazy that you could hear that woman eating over Spider-Man. Like, it's such a loud movie. But The Hours isn't loud. And I remember I was in high school, and I think I said, this is like the most old man in a young man's body thing, where I was like, would you be quiet at some point in the movie theater? Or like, would you shut up? Like a full sentence. And the women did shut up. They were embarrassed because the whole theater laughed when they heard me say that. And afterwards, they were looking for me. Like, they were stood up in the theater, like looking around to see who had told them to shut up.
That's awesome.
What a success story.
Yeah, really.
It made me overconfident, though, 'cause a couple of times I have been rude to people who I realized could not help the sound they were making, and I apologized profusely, and I felt very, very bad.
Oh,
You flew too close to the sun.
Yeah, exactly.
I really do admire that, though, because I have always wanted to do that. Because, like, there's just people that are on their phone or they're talking, and it makes me want to say something, and I just, like, deep down inside of me feel so uncomfortable at the thought of, like, not even aggressively, just like confronting a stranger in that setting. It makes me so terrified.
Yeah, it is nerve-wracking, and I think I also did it. This might have been first in Ocean's 11, but it was a much less crowded theater, and somebody was just like, somebody's literally talking to his girlfriend out loud, predicting plot points. And eventually I turned around, I was like, come on, man. Which was received better. I even got I'm sorry from that guy.
Oh, that's great. When you get that, when you get them and they're like, oh my gosh, dude, I'm so sorry, I will never do that again. And then they just retreat into themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially during Ocean's 11, which is a top 3 movie.
That's a high ranking.
That is very high. I love Ocean's 11, but that seems almost, I would say, too high.
The other top 3 are 12 and 13.
Oh, okay.
What about Ocean's 8? Where would you put that one?
No comment.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I think I put for me from like bottom, I'll do bottom 4 to the top would be Ocean's 13, Ocean's 12, Ocean's 11, and then the scene in Ocean's, where's when they steal the egg from and it's like the competition with the French guy. Yeah, the scene in Ocean's 12, the laser scene where the French guy does his like gymnastic, his like capoeira through the it's just swimming. He's just swimming through lasers. That's like top for me. I think.
Has anyone seen the original with the Rat Pack in the 60s?
I haven't.
No?
I actually haven't either. I would love to, though.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
So Nate, I have a question.
Yeah.
One of the earliest memories I have of like a movie being more than a movie was seeing Jurassic Park for the first time. And it was kind of built up for me because it was hyped so much when it came out, but then also my aunt had the soundtrack, the musical soundtrack for it in her car, and would play the CD, and I was little then, and it would scare my sister and I whenever she played it, and she would do it just to like tease us. But then when I eventually saw the movie, I remember being so floored that this is what it was. And of course it's a fantastic movie, but do you have any memories of a movie you saw it maybe when you were young and it just had such like an impact on you?
Yeah, so Jurassic Park is one of those movies. I was a big Spielberg kid because I grew up on E.T. And then when I learned that the same director made like this movie that I love, Jurassic Park, I sort of fell down a Spielberg rabbit hole where I wanted to see everything he did, which isn't appropriate for a child. So I only saw like 3 or 4 things, but I was like, this is the greatest director of all time. Another one, a couple of big ones, a lot of the Disney films, because I I was growing up right as the Renaissance happened.
Yeah.
So Little Mermaid in theaters, Aladdin in theaters, Beauty and the Beast in theaters.
Goofy movie in theaters.
I did see a Goofy movie in theaters with my dad, who's a little bit of a Goofy himself. The joke.
Wait, Topher, is it podcast canon that you love a Goofy movie, or is that not out yet?
I swear I must have talked about the Goofy movie in the podcast before. I can't imagine that I can't imagine going more than like a week without mentioning the Goofy movie. So I'm sure that I talked about it in the podcast.
There was a physical joke in the Goofy movie that made me laugh so much as a kid, and it was when they had the possum mascot at that one stop, and Max punches him and spins his mask around backwards, and then like that didn't make me laugh. It was way later when there's like a really serious conversation going on between Goofy and Max, and in the background you just see the possum character blindly like fumbling around until children jump him and drag him off, and that always made me laugh. So that was influential.
Lester's Possum Park is like a top 3 movie scene for me, I think.
Yeah, that was really funny. Especially because it's kind of making fun of Disney. Like, it's kind of making the Disney World.
Yeah, it is. I feel like it is. I feel like almost sick to my stomach when I watch that scene, because I think about Chuck E. Cheese and like what we passed for entertainment as kids, and like just going to Chuck E. Cheese and thinking about like the animatronic like banjo playing mouse like just freaks me out. But I think that I love when any like studio has like a self-aware kind of nudge, like they like poke themselves a little bit like that. It's fun.
Well, Disney has a bunch of that, because Disney is such a presence that like it's hard to talk about certain subjects without bringing up Disney. So the movies that are even about those subjects kind of bring up Disney. Like Ratatouille, I always saw as like Pixar was about to leave Disney. I think that was like their last contracted movie with the studio, or it might have been their first non-Disney movie they were planning. And if you look at it, it's totally about Disney. It's about how Disney became complacent and just kept churning out manufacture or sort of like photocopied ideas from Walt Disney, the same way that this chef was sort of capitalizing on the image of this older, greater chef, and how the new guy in town, the rat and or computer animation, I guess, were sort of the new wave of artistic expression, even if they weren't taken seriously.
Wow, that's interesting.
I've never thought about Ratatouille like that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it came around the exact time that all was happening. Otherwise, I would not necessarily ascribe all those meanings to it. But it was literally like when Pixar was about to become its own studio, and then Disney at the last second was like, no, we'll pay you $1 million and put you in charge of everything.
Dan, I think I feel like I maybe stepped on your question a little bit. Do you feel like you got a substantial answer out of Nate?
I asked him movies he found inspirational as a child.
Oh yes.
The Spielberg.
Nate, do you feel like you answered that sufficiently?
The Spielberg ones and the Disney ones are the big, two I think you grew up on. But I'd say the ones that got me into like movie buffdom was like the movie that changed my life in theaters was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. That blew me away. I'd never seen anything like it was that thing that people describe as like when you're transported by a movie, and like it seems very cliche and almost like I don't know. I don't feel that way about film that often. Like I don't feel completely taken in. I'm aware of the fact that it's a film, but that was a movie that afterwards I walked out of and I was like, I don't understand how movies aren't all this good if they can be this good. Like, and I went and saw it 6 times in theaters. Took my mom, and she doesn't like wuxia martial arts films, so she was bored. But that's the one that like I think I was 13, 14. That kind of transitioned me into like adulthood movie watching. Or
But that's kind of like an important thing, though, when you're that age. Like, you're showing your parents, like, hey, mom, this means something to me, even if I can't articulate it. Like, you need to see this.
She was very nice about it, but she was like, there were a lot of fight scenes in there, weren't there?
That's basically my parents. Anytime I tried to show them wrestling as a kid, they were just like, all right, this is the thing our son likes. I guess we're going to take him to the wrestling match.
Oh my God. One time, my dad told me that Power Rangers was stupid and he was tired of hearing about it because he lost patience.
No.
I know. I was in the car with him on the way to hockey practice, and I think it was just one of those things where I have an obsessive personality about certain things. So like when I'm thinking about it, it's all I'm thinking about. It's all I want to talk about. And like I was talking about some Power Rangers thing that had happened, and I was explaining it to my dad, and finally he goes, I don't care about this stupid TV show. And I was like, what? And I was like, you called me stupid. And he was like, no, I didn't call you stupid. I said that show is stupid. And it was like the only time he wasn't encouraging in my interest, but the Power Rangers broke him. He couldn't fucking take it.
Can you remember the Power Rangers, like the specific thing about the Power Rangers that you were trying to explain?
Yeah. I think that what it was is that I always got very excited when there were crossover episodes or multi-part episodes coming up.
Exactly. I agree.
There was some arc. So this was on Saturday Fox,
Mhm.
Saturday Morning Fox, and the X-Men were on that channel or that block too. And I know the X-Men had a lot of like arcs, like the Phoenix Saga, the Brood Saga, et cetera, and I was really excited by those. So I wanted Power Rangers to have the same thing, and then they were going to have a 2-part episode, and I was explaining it to my dad, and he was just like, I don't care that there's a 2-part episode of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I remember very vividly seeing the Power Rangers in Space episode where they cross over with the Ninja Turtles.
Whoa, I didn't even know that existed.
I lost my mind. That was great. And fun fact, in the comic books right now, they are doing a crossover with the Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles where like the Power Rangers lose their powers and the Ninja Turtles like gain their powers. And so the Power Rangers are running around the sewers like ninjas, and the Ninja Turtles are Power Rangers.
Crazy.
And Shredder has the power of the Green Ranger. Or the White Ranger, I don't know which one, but it's like I haven't read any of the comics, but there's like a couple of comic YouTube channels I follow where they talk about it, and they're like showing screenshots of it, and they're in like they still are shaped like Ninja Turtles.
Yeah,
but they have like full like Power Ranger attire, and April O'Neil is the Yellow Ranger, which is just perfect.
Oh, that's cool with the trench coat and everything.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Oh yeah, I'm seeing it. That's cool.
Yep.
They look great, actually.
Oh, it's so much fun. I definitely agree with you about like the crossover episodes because I think I grew up on Spider-Man the Animated Series, which came like right after X-Men, or like I don't know if how long after. There was some overlap because X-Men was the first one to do those overarching storylines in an animated show. Like that had never been done before. And so I grew up I would watch Spider-Man when I came home from school. And so any animated show or superhero related thing that I watched after that didn't have like a narrative thing going on from episode to episode, like overarching, I was like, this is pointless. I don't care. What's the point?
You were done with episodic television early.
Yeah, exactly. Which people like tell me to get into Batman the Animated Series because it is incredible. Like visually, it's beautiful. Obviously, Kevin Conroy is one of the greatest voice actors ever.
The voice acting is really incredible.
It's so good, but they, for the most part, don't have the narrative format, and they just have that episodic format. And I'm just like, don't care.
I kind of get that. I mean, especially with superheroes, they sort of come from a serialized medium. They're most similar to, you know, these mythical characters that would have like millions of adventures, and they, you know, they're not meant to be contained like that, I guess, to an extent. But the Batman animated series was phenomenal. I was a big fan of that too as a kid.
Has anyone watched it recently?
Yeah, I watched it in the past couple years.
Okay, because I don't know. I have this thing where I sort of believe if you say you love something, you should watch it again recently. Like if you say you love something from your past, like chances are it might not hold up. And like I've been rewatching things recently, and it's just like, ooh, I don't know if I still like that.
Yeah, Batman holds up better than X-Men, I'll say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Spider-Man and X-Men both had, especially towards the end of their runs, some animation issues where like that started looking real janky. But the Batman was always like beautifully animated and like just had an overall aesthetic design and like style. It was the Bruce Timm style, that sort of like retro comic, almost pinup style that really does, like, it doesn't age it to the point where you're like, oh, a 90s cartoon. It's like, oh, this really cool retro future kind of world still.
And I will say that the Bruce Timm kind of continues on with Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, where you do have that the longer form storytelling in it, while still having like the animation style that he kind of penned in Batman the Animated Series. But I think that I just started watching Spider-Man with my wife, and she had never seen it before, the 90s animated series, and it's on Disney Plus, so we're watching it, and we're watching through it, and she loves it, but she is pointing out things that I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. Every single episode so far, we're like 6 episodes in, he switches from being super in love with Felicia Hardy to being super in love with Mary Jane to being super in love with Felicia Hardy again. And it goes like episode to episode, he switches women every single time. And it's just kind of like, it's not even like cringy in like a sexism sense. It is cringy in that sense, but it's mostly cringy and it doesn't make any kind of narrative sense at all. He doesn't explain why he switches between women. It's very weird.
Well, Peter Parker was always like that. He always had the multiple that he was crushing on.
Yeah. I mean, he's a hunk. Why would you? I mean, I understand why the ladies are into him.
I remember one thing in Spider-Man that I later learned, that a lot of those cartoons were restricted by rules that have been put in place about violence.
The punching, they can't punch.
They can't punch. I don't think that they can. They can't shoot. They all have lasers. If anybody ever has a gun in any animated series that's not Batman, it's a laser gun. There are no bullets, which I found interesting, and so there's no blood or like injuries from shooting. And I think with Spider-Man, that's why he ends up fighting so many robots, is because you can hurt robots as much as you want, but it doesn't matter. Whereas like humans, or a humanoid gets hurt, that's a different thing in a cartoon.
Yeah, I think that it's very weird. I mean, I guess I kind of understand it, but they do fight the robots more, but then you realize, once you see that, you realize how many kicks he does, because some reason kicks are less violent than punches.
Oh, that's interesting.
So he still kicks people all the time. Like he'll swing in and just kick somebody and then swing back out and then web them up.
I guess they assumed that children didn't have as many things to swing from at each other, so maybe that was not a violent act that they could copy as easily.
They hadn't been in my household.
Oh no, you had a bunch of tire swings in your.
Oh dude, I swang from stuff all the time. Swang?
Swang.
I swung from stuff. Sorry, I'm attempting to upgrade our meeting right now.
No worries.
So
I don't know. Did anyone ever watch like Did anyone ever watch like Three Ninjas or Mortal Kombat as a kid? I feel like whenever I watched those, I tried to like beat up my sisters or something.
First up, yes, there were definitely. I came up. The age of Power Rangers was actually like the initial show caused a problem because people were like kicking and punching and like throwing things at each other a lot in my class. And then Mortal Kombat got censored around the time. Honestly, I think the worst was my sister saw King of the Hill and decided to repeat certain things to my mom.
Mm.
And one of them was Cotton. Hank's dad is a huge misogynist, and he says he smacked his wife on the butt and said, "Woman, get me a sandwich," at one point. And so my sister decided that'd be really funny to do to my mom. So I didn't get to watch King of the Hill for like 7 years. Also, pop culture. That's what gets me out of bed. Better answer. And this conversation's, I think, illustrated that.
Sorry, hold on. Almost done. Almost got it.
You typing in those credit card details?
Yeah, I had to go get it. Boom. Do we have? Are we upgraded?
Yeah.
Meeting has
We're
been upgraded.
subscribing. Our
Wow.
meeting has unlimited minutes because I was too excited about this conversation to stop it. So I heard King of the Hill while I ran away.
Yeah, my sister sexually harassed my mother by imitating something she saw in King of the Hill.
Yeah.
We were just talking about kids doing stupid things and like repeating things they see on TV.
I don't think I watched King of the Hill until I was like old enough to know better. Like I feel like I watched King of the Hill when I could like appreciate it for like a very like biting but like loving critique of like Southern American values
Mm-hmm.
in like a really like I appreciate it in a beautiful way. But then if I watched it as a kid, I probably would have done all of the things in that show that you shouldn't do, like get me a beer, woman.
Yeah. That show took a long time for me to get the tone of. I had to be older to get it because it was right after The Simpsons, and The Simpsons was like a fun like cartoon, and King of the Hill was like an animated sitcom.
Yeah, definitely.
Although, like, I've been watching Nate. Remind me, you're a Simpsons fan, also,
Big.
correct? Okay. Like, I've been rewatching it now that it's on Disney Plus, and there are I never realized how many movie references there are in The Simpsons. Like, almost entire plot points are beat for beat movies, like
Yep.
old movies.
Yeah, that the people look at the classic Simpsons and they're like, oh, like these are better than like the later ones because the later ones just imitate, steal whole cloth like plots from other movies. It's like, well, that's exactly what old Simpsons did. They just did it better, and everybody liked the Simpsons at the time.
So that begs the question: what is your opinion on The Simpsons? Are you a classics only, or are you?
I mean, so I think that there is a little bit of a difference where there's the beginning. I think the people say season 3 through like 9 or somewhere around there is like I think that is like the gooey middle. That's the best part of the whole thing. I think it got worse for a while, and then not that it ever got back up to how good it was, but like it goes through cycles of being really bad for a while, and then occasionally you'll be like, oh, I caught a Simpsons the other day and it was genuinely funny and like kind of seemed to like have a different thing. The animation again got really bad for a while, and seems recently to have gotten better again. And I don't know, the tone seems better. They were trying to play catch up with culture in a way that like South Park was beating them to for a long time, and I think they kind of stopped doing that.
Yeah, I don't know. I never watched anything past like maybe 12, but I have heard like mainly the Conan O'Brien years were like the golden years of The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And anyone who thinks otherwise is less than.
Well, I mean, there's an entire episode of The Simpsons that was written about people. So The Simpsons had a huge online fan base in early internet. One of my dad's best friends was very active in it. And it's sort of like Star Trek Next Generation also had that on like original internet forums / chat rooms or whatever. And people were very critical of like the 5th season of The Simpsons. People were like, oh, it's lost its way, it's not funny anymore. Like early on, people were already abandoning it after, you know, exactly the same pattern we see with any TV show. And they wrote the Poochie episode about themselves and about their critics online and everybody who was like declaring that the show had already jumped the shark like in season 6. So they wrote the Itchy, Scratchy, and Poochie episode as like a reply, which I always thought was funny.
That is a great episode, yes.
So we've talked a lot about pop culture here. And we've like mentioned improv for a second.
Just a quick second.
Just a quick second. I want more seconds of that. So do you think that your relationship to movies and TV shows and pop culture, do you think, and how do you think that's informed your the way you do improv?
Well, it's definitely informed it. I think my comedic sensibility is shaped, you know, I mean, all of our comedic sensibilities are shaped by like our family, and then I think the things we're exposed to early that we find funny. And I've always, I think it was early that I discovered I wanted to like act or perform or make people laugh. That was definitely something I was like, once we had like my first drama class in school, I was like, oh, this is, you know, my favorite subject. So I would say that I tended to play types that I knew from movies or TV shows, or like stock characters, and sometimes that did me a disservice or did other people a disservice because you're not really coming organically with anything and you're not reflecting real life, you're reflecting another reflection of real life, and it doesn't quite work if you take things out of context. But I definitely think my like voice of reasoning and everything like that is very influenced by the TV shows I watched as a kid and what I thought was funny. Because I always thought that somebody reacting very calmly to something insane was funny, or somebody pointing out the absurdity of situations was always very funny to me. And that's what I do on stage a lot.
That's true. I think one of the things, like Frankie, my wife, has not taken any improv classes, but she's heard me ramble about improv a lot and seen a lot of shows at Big. And so anytime we go see a show, she will try to point out things that we've talked about and be like, oh, this is an example of them playing the unusual character or being the voice of reason. And one of the things she always says is that she loves seeing you play the voice of reason because she thinks that you do it in such a hilarious way that is very like real, but also just so funny.
Oh, that's really very, very nice of Frankie. Tell her I appreciate her.
Frankie, Nate appreciates you. I told her, she's over there.
Good, thank you. Yeah, I think it's hard. It's hard to voice of reason. It's hard to be the one who's not wacky. Except, I don't know, for some reason, it's harder for me to be wacky because I have trouble being consistent and logical with it, so that people can pick up on exactly what kind of wackiness I'm giving. So it's easier for me to do voice of reason. And it just so happens that there's something in my tone of voice or the way I interact with people that like makes it easier to frustrate me and like funnier to frustrate me or funnier to like see me get like have to deal with craziness. There's something about that amuses people is seeing me have to deal with insane people. And if people want that, then I'm not going to say no.
Can you, so obviously we know what you're talking about in terms of voice of reason, and some people probably have gotten that from context, but could you explain the idea of like unusual person versus voice of reason?
Sure. The terms used to be, and people are probably more familiar with these just because the general terminology changed as of late, was sort of crazy man, straight man, and so the straight man, as in like the classic setup is Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis, where you have a normal person and a very insane person, and the normal person is the audience surrogate. It's the person who sort is close to a grounded, recognizable human being and allows us to see and perceive what's going on as being based in some reality. And it allows for, I think, the unusual person to play off of something. It gives them something to respond to or have responding to them. And it's so that's one setup. You have the contrasting points of view, but you can also do matching points of view, which I do not do very often, but is very fun. And that's like, if you ever seen Parks and Rec, the two potheads who are the animal control.
Yeah.
Played by Harris Whittles, R.I.P. And actually, I do not know the other actor's name, but he's always so funny.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They are an example of like a matching pair who's always funny when they're talking to each other. There's something like, we know that potheads are going to come off as dumb to normal people, but there's something about the way they interact, especially, and are unusual together in the exact same way. Key and Peele do it a lot. Like the church ladies, when they keep one-upping each other on what they're going to do to Satan. And those are sort of the two basic kind of dynamics you end up with in improv a lot.
Okay. Cool. Trying to think.
I went into teacher mode.
I love it. No, please do. That's exactly what I wanted, was teacher mode, Nate, because I feel like you explain it in a very understandable way.
Did we discuss that Nate taught all of us in
I don't-
101?
I don't know if I did, if we discussed that before I started recording or after, but yes, Nate was our 101 teacher, which is where I met Janty and Daniel, and that was where Mouth Stuff was born. I'm
a big fan of Mouth Stuff, by the way, the improv troupe and the general concept. But I love watching you guys. I've gotten the chance to work with you guys a couple times. But I love what you all are doing.
Thanks, Nate.
That means a lot.
Thanks, Nate.
I'm gonna cry. No, I can't touch my face. Sorry.
No, don't touch it.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, I try. What was I gonna ask you? I had a question, and I
Something
can't think of
about teaching you guys, teaching improv.
which one of us is the best at improv?
Oh, okay, yeah, sure. Real quick, somebody who's not here.
And why is it Sarah?
Yeah, it's Sarah. Sure.
Obviously, Sarah.
No, actually, truthfully, if I can talk about that for a second, teaching you guys was a real delight because you were my second class, and I'd had a very good first class. Another troupe from Baltimore Improv Group came out of there called Book Club.
Book Club.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out to Book Club. Awesome
Shout out
people.
to Book Club. Yeah, you guys are sort of sister troupes in some ways. You guys came up around the same time. And that was such a wonderful experience. And I had like this really tiny class of people. And I was worried that I had just gotten really lucky with my first class that I was teaching. And then when I got you all, I was like, oh my God, are these all just going to be amazing? And it was a really great way to hit the ground running while teaching, getting two excellent classes full of just awesome people. And you guys were a much bigger group and more sort of diverse, and you had a whole lot of stuff going on. And you were just so funny. I was so excited about the future of the theater when I walked in and worked with you guys.
I appreciate, while you are correct that we were a very diverse group. I appreciate that you're saying that while talking to just three white dudes.
Yeah. I thought about that too. I was like a very diverse group of white guys with medium length hair.
Just different shades of white.
Yeah. Two have beards. One doesn't have a beard.
Yep.
Exactly.
The whole gambit.
Exactly. Bearded and unbearded. All the versions of white people. I also, while you were giving us all those lovely compliments, I could feel Janty like melting into the wall from all of the praise that he was getting and just making him so uncomfortable. Which is one of my favorite things.
I didn't. What was happening, I think, is I was reminiscing about my first like hard improv lesson in your 101 class, Nate, which is
Tell
like
it.
to make your partner look like a genius and not make them look like the opposite. I can like vividly remember, and like it's so visceral, I can feel it, and that's probably what I was doing in my chair.
Wow.
Where like my scene partner was being like an older woman in a museum, and she was like wanted to look at a painting, and I was like, we already looked at that one, Grandma. Are you blind? Are you crazy? Like in the moment, I remember feeling like this doesn't feel fun. This doesn't feel good. And you were like, don't you? It stuck with me.
Yeah, that's actually a lesson I got taught early too. I was a very pushy early improviser, I think. Like I tended to like guide scenes, putting up scare quotes, and like sort of know what was going on and tell people that they were wrong a lot of the time. Well, not a lot, but enough that I had a teacher stop me and be like, you need to be nice to your scene partner in this scene. And I was just like, okay. And it was like pulling teeth. I had such a hard time doing it. And then I realized later, I was like, that's the best note I could have possibly gotten.
Yeah.
I definitely will say, I think getting notes in improv is probably the most painful criticism I've ever gotten in life before. Like, you are bad at playing pretend right now. You are not playing pretend correctly, and you need to make believe better. I'm like, you're right. I do need to do that.
Well, it's so funny because the majority of notes I feel like I give these days, and that I've given overall, the ones that are most effective are more strategy. Like Janty was saying, it's more of like what you're bringing is right. Like, I love what you're bringing. Let's just figure out a way to make it a collaborative like thing we can build on. Because I think that's the difference between being funny and being a good collaborator in improv. Is that it takes experience to know how to work with other people and to like learn what the easiest stuff for other people to play off of is. Because if you are going down your own path and you're sort of in something funny, that's great. But like, for instance, if your character is just a negative shithead to everyone, like eventually the audience is going to be like, I don't want to watch this guy anymore. And so you kind of you feel that out. I mean, I've gotten some tough notes before. The worst version of that is Terry Withers, who is the executive manager of Big and a former UCB performer and a great teacher and instructor, was coaching my troupe Old City. And I made some move, or I think I decided that in this scene, I'd sent my daughter off to college, but we were actually like a weird compound family that like was a bunch of preppers or something like that. And so it was like me asking her if she told people in college that she was a prepper. It was a very complicated plotty scene. And afterwards, Terry's just like, okay, so you were a family of people who have different kind of beliefs than other people. I don't know if you thought that was funny or not, or or something along those lines, where I was just like, all right, well, that's a tough one, but yeah, good point. That is exactly what that joke was.
That's good. Daniel did have to hop off. He said he was grateful for getting to join us, and that he wants to see us all soon.
He's a good guy, Nathaniel.
He is. I'm a big fan. Actually, in our 101 showcase, well, there was like a game that was happening throughout class, our 101 class, where Daniel and I would both show up to class wearing similar things, if not the exact same thing, which there was one time where we showed up wearing the exact same outfit. And so we thought it would be hilarious if for our 101 showcase we wore the exact same outfit. It was a thing we did. Nobody was like, oh, those two, they're dressed similarly. That's funny. I don't know. I don't think it was a highlight, but
was it by any chance a flannel shirt?
Yes, it was.
Because they might have just thought you were dressed as an improviser.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Oh, there's two white men in plaid flannels. That's just normal. But it was like the exact same flannel, and like it looks great. I was proud of it.
I remember that showcase.
It was a fun one. I remember Janty had a scene on a beach, I think. Does that
Yeah,
sound?
I remember that.
And I remember everyone afterwards. All my like, I had a lot of people there to see me. Like a lot of friends and family came, and all of them were just talking about that guy doing the beach scene. So
It was the beach scene was really fun. It was also just funny to see you, Janty, because you are such a kind person, and I think you are. I don't know if the term soft-spoken is like a pejorative in any way, but like I was under the impression you were this soft-spoken type, and when you did that scene, you were so aggressively like it was different than what we were talking about before, where you were just so aggressively doing your thing, and your character was so clueless, but you knew that. It was really funny to watch. And it was very surprising.
it was definitely a fun showcase.
Yeah, I liked all the other scenes.
Sarah had a scene where she went into a hot tub with an infectious disease or something like that, or like she had like some sort of like broken arm, and her doctor told her to get in a hot tub.
Yeah, I remember that. That was really good. Sarah is, for those listening, she is another member of our team, and the reason we keep mentioning her is because she is lovely and amazing, but she is currently overseas with the military, so we haven't seen her in a long time, and we miss her. But to be fair, we haven't seen anybody in a long time recently, so
Yeah,
it
you're
just
not
feels.
so special anymore, Sarah.
Yeah,
Yeah, fuck you, Sarah. I mean,
yeah. That's cool. We do allow one F-bomb
ooh, I
on the pocket. You dropped it? No, that was perfect. That was a perfect way to drop it, by shouting "F you" to a member of our armed forces.
yeah, and good friend of ours.
Good friend of ours. But you could use one more if you'd like to, because the podcast that we posted last week was with a priest, and he did not use his F-bomb. So if you'd like to, you can use
full
another one.
disclosure, you might have missed one. I dropped one earlier.
Oh.
Keen audience members will notice that.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and fess up to it.
If you guys find the first F-bomb, please post it in the comments below, and we'll give you nothing. We won't give you any prize, but feel good about yourself.
I have nothing to give.
Yeah, that's fair. So before we were bad-mouthing Sarah.
We were talking about improv.
Yeah, we were talking about improv, and I wanted to ask you. You are a really, really good teacher, and we love having you teach us. We actually had you like coach one of our practices, and it was like the coolest thing ever, because it had been since 101 that you had coached us, so it felt like, this is fun. Do you have a preference, or I guess, what are some things that you like about teaching more than performing, or performing more than teaching?
So performing is, is incredible, just because you get to connect with an audience and you get to connect with your teammates, and that feeling of being in the groove and just landing shit, like landing a joke or landing feeling connected to that person, and like everything is like flowing and the audience is with you. Like there's nothing that compares to that. It's the best feeling. That said, teaching is very important to me, and I was not expecting it to be as much, because I hadn't taught anything in my life, and coming into this, I was a little worried that I'm kind of scatterbrained, and I was going to be a scatterbrained teacher, which I'm a little bit, but the ability to help people just get to that next step, like to know that they can get there, and like to just be that person telling them that they can make the gap, they can take this next step, they can move on, helping point out things that that can help them, that it really does mean, I think that's the most rewarding thing, that I do at the theater. As far as like stress or anything like that, like I think teaching, there's a responsibility you have on you to like, serve your students well and to be present and to, especially with improv, listen to what they're doing and give them feedback and like really be in the room with them. And that's not always the easiest, especially for someone like me with ADD and like just overstimulated environments. We always have this phone in our pocket that like I have to put like 7 feet away from me in order to like not touch. Yeah, exactly. I do that during movies.
Just social distance yourself from your phone.
I do. If I find myself in a movie, like I'm like, oh, I just might as well. I'm like, oh, gotta throw my phone on the couch. It's bounced off once or twice, not broken, but I usually throw it to the other side of the couch so I can't get it. But the teaching and seeing people come up in the theater and being able to do for them what people did for me, and sort of passing that along and encouragement, and is very important to me. And I think that's something that if it's been done for you as a performer and it's been done for you as an entertainer or an artist, I don't want to say anyone owes anything, but like you kind of owe it to other people to do the same, to help, to give that hand, to like be encouraging and sort of be a good peer when you have the chance to be.
Like that.
What do you how do you feel about doing online improv in these times?
So it's interesting, right? I know you both have done it. Mm-hmm. And it's different. You feel very you can't rely on the same things. You don't have an audience. You don't know how you're doing. Mm-hmm. That said, I think that we've barely begun to scratch the surface of what it can do during this break. I know my troupe, Old City's been doing Friday night shows since really the quarantine started. So we're on our 4th show tonight, or maybe I think our 4th show would be tonight. And that's been incredible, but I can't imagine being able to do what we're doing without having literally years of prior experience, knowing each other's rhythms, each other's styles, like what we're going to, like the kind of things we like to contribute to scenes. I watched the I've already used them, so I'm gonna censor this one. F that shit set. They're UCB.
Oh, you mean the UCB group? Fuck that shit.
Yes,
I didn't use my F-bomb, so I can.
Okay, there you go. There you go. That troupe. They had a charity show that was, imperfect, because like some of them are literally on their couch on their iPhone with like just a headphone in, like, oh yeah, let me just real quick do this set. But it was so fun and so silly, and there were no rules, kind of, or like, no rules as in improv style, no rules as in there are a lot of guidelines. But I've enjoyed watching a lot of it. It's been more fun than I thought it would be. And I don't know, I think, we as artists are more, a challenge is something that we should embrace. Yeah. And in this case, because with theater, and especially with comedy, stage time and sort of like seniority and all those things kind of end up getting built up in communities. And this is a little bit of a leveler. Anyone can stream a show anytime. Anyone can put any contribution out there. You don't need there's no stage that you have to kind of wait to get on. And I've seen people doing better improv than I do, for sure, with way less experience, just because this format might be something that they're kind of excited by and that they've got a little bit more of a fresh take with. So I'm positive. I would love to be back in the theater and performing and seeing my friends and such, but I do think that this is not just a pale comparison or anything. I think it's its own thing and can be very fun.
Are there any other, like, obviously this is stretching the medium of improv and stretching entertainment in general, are there any other ways that you have like wanted to stretch improv in the past that maybe this has kind of given you the confidence to be like, oh, well, if we can do improv over Zoom call, then we can do this type of improv or this type of comedy?
That's an interesting question. And I've discovered that I'm not like a format changer when it comes to improv. Like there are some people I know who come up with ideas of like shows and I'm like, wow, that's great. I don't tend to come up with very good ideas, frankly. I think the one thing that could be fun with it that I'm not sure I've seen a lot of yet is the themed shows. I mean, you have those online or at the theater and everything like that. There was a Game of Thrones show for a while and things like that. But I think the like big concept shows are just starting to come out now. I saw, what did I see? I saw, the workshop that Baltimore Improv Group's putting on next week. They're going to have Kate Zielinski screen a taped improv show from years back and do basically a DVD commentary on it for students.
Yeah, I signed up for that. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm going to sign up for it as soon as we finish talking. And like, I think the way we're teaching can be really, and like, that's really interesting. Like, I don't know that Kate would offer that normally, but that actually would be still a very useful tool, even if we weren't all stuck indoors.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we're just starting to see the real workarounds and the innovations in the past like week or so. And I'm really excited to see where it goes. Be more excited if we were seeing each other.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that goes without saying at this point.
Sure. We'll definitely when we're all back to being able to see and hug and shake each other's hands, which we should never do again. We'd never shake each other's hands.
No handshaking.
But when we're doing that, when we get back to that, we'll take you to Pen and Quill and we'll get you a nice Topo Chico, and it'll be lovely. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Janty, did you have any more questions for Nate that you could think of?
Not off the top of my head. I could talk forever with this guy.
I know, me too. But I do want to be respectful of your time because you're a busy improviser. You got lots of Zoom shows to do.
I've got a show coming up tonight.
Exactly. So first and foremost, I want this to be a podcast where I let my friends rant at me about things that they're passionate about, things that they love, because I have friends that listen to me rant about a Goofy movie and pro wrestling. Some of them are on this Zoom call right now. And so I want you to feel like if there's anything that we missed or anything that we didn't dive deep enough into, this is your last chance to rant. Please, like anything you're passionate about that you just want to like explode with, please tell us.
I would say I'm going to go back to my movie thing. Mm-hmm. If you liked Parasite, first off, it's on Hulu right now, so go check it out. If you like that, then subtitles aren't a problem for you, and you should go check out more subtitled movies. That's my big thing these days, is that people have discovered that subtitles don't ruin a movie, because we've a lot of us have seen Parasite, and it's great. And I would say get on that. Go see other Korean movies if that interested you. French, Japanese, German. I mean, like, people have been making movies for 100 years in almost every country. So my big thing is go check that out. I've been sneakily getting my roommates into like classic and foreign film by like being like, we should watch this like Dario Argento horror film, but then maybe some other Italian stuff, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So are you a subs over dubs kind of guy?
Oh, not even a question. Not even a question. I mean, the only anime I've really seen probably was dubbed, if I had to guess, but I also am not a huge anime guy. And
that's fair.
Not that I dislike it. Just have not checked it out much.
I mean, my biggest anime that I loved was Digimon as a kid, which I grew up watching the dub version. And I don't know if it's like a nostalgia thing or if it's like I prefer being able to understand the language and so reading, or if it's like their voices. But I love what I just rewatched the Digimon movie because for some reason, whole thing's on YouTube. They just have the whole Digimon movie up on YouTube.
Nice.
But I've been wanting to watch more things with subtitles because I put the subtitles on a lot anyway.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, I think a lot of people do that.
yeah, we Frankie and I watched Dairy Girls recently, which is just Irish, but they like talk with these very, very thick Irish accents and then have this like super intense 90s Irish slang that if you don't watch it with subtitles, you are missing like half of the jokes that happen.
I have to have it on for the Great British Baking Show for a similar reason.
Yes. I just love cooking shows are what Frankie watches when she's sick. So anytime she's sick, we're watching Great British Bake Off, we're watching Zumbo's Just Desserts, or we're watching Nailed It, which is
I love Nicole Byer. I love
Nicole Byer is so delightful. Everything she does is incredible.
Have you listened to her Star Wars podcast?
Gonna do that now.
She and Lauren Lapkus watched Star Wars for the first time, and they sort of review each movie in it.
That I'm doing that right now. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Nate. This was lovely.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been really excited about coming on for a while, so I'm glad it took a global pandemic, or
yes.
But whatever it takes.
Exactly. Yeah, and once we get back to in-person recordings, we want to have you back on for one of our more traditional episodes. Because it's just more fun chatting in person. Before you go, Nate, is there anything that you would like to plug that I can put in the description below?
Yeah, Baltimore Improv Group is doing shows throughout this shared experience. I think they're going to be putting up Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday. They're really put it out there. So bigimprov.org. I don't know what it's a YouTube streaming channel. Baltimore Improv Group.
Yeah, we'll put the link to it down below.
And then that said, Friday nights at 8 will be my troupe Old City. And I'd like to promote that and the podcast that'll be live streaming for the foreseeable future on Wednesdays, Getting Biggie With It, which my good friends Danny and Carrie host, but I appear on frequently. Next week, I don't know what date it'll be, but Terry is supposed to be on it. If they keep the date,
that'll be a good one. Janty, what are you gonna plug? Because you got some stuff to plug too. I would like those plugs, please.
I have a podcast with my girlfriend where it's called Fear Discussion with Joe's Rosegan, where we talk about episodes of Fear Factor in no particular order. It's a laugh riot, I tell you what.
I'm checking that out tonight.
It's so as a fan of this podcast, it is the most adorable shit. Like the first 5 minutes, I'm like, this is the most adorable couple ever. But then as you get further into it, I'm like, oh wow, I appreciate their opinions on Fear Factor.
Okay.
It's great.
Don't oversell it.
No, it's so good. It's so much fun. And then what you have shows in the future as well, don't you? Sometimes
I have shows every other Tuesday, so I'm off this Tuesday, but starting the following Tuesday, I have shows with my Herald team, Red Rover, also on the Baltimore Improv Group YouTube live stream link that Topher will put in the description. Those start at 7:30 ish, and we're one of 3 teams every other Tuesday. Check out the Tuesdays that we're not there though, because there are other good troops and good people that we're friends with on Tuesday nights. Tuesday nights 7:30, big live stream YouTube, boom boom. Also on indie teams, Mouth Stuff and Standing Room Only. Mouth Stuff seems more prone to doing improv than Standing Room Only, but you never know. You never know what might happen.
Very true. Thank you so much, guys. You have been absolutely lovely. if this wasn't obvious from this podcast, please go check out Baltimore Improv Group stuff, because there's so many amazing people doing stuff there, and it is a nonprofit. So please donate money, because even when not doing shows over Zoom, the shows are still free when you get to see them in a real theater. So please donate to Big Improv. And thank you guys so much for being on.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. I have been Topher. Matt has been Matt, but he hasn't been here. Janty's been Janty. Dan's been Dan. And Nate's been Nate. And we're going to go bye-bye now. So thank you so much. And I'm going to stop recording now. And bye.